Welcome back. I'm Dr. Virginia Charter, and today myself and Dr. Hoskins are going to be talking to you about product standards. Overall, what we're going to be talking about today is what are product standards, and then we're going to talk about where product standards can be used and mostly utilized, who develops those product standards, and how are product standards developed. So what are product standards? Product standards really confirm the quality and functionality of different products before they reach consumers or end users. And what's important here is that there's specific testing criteria and manufacturer specifications that need to be adhered to ensure the public safety when utilizing a variety of products. Product standards are used in a variety of applications. There's also a variety of industries. If you've ever plugged something into a wall, you've probably been exposed to some sort of product standard that it was tested to. And there's a lot of different areas where product standards are utilized in fire protection. For example, sprinklers go through product standard testing and criteria in order to be implemented into the standard. It's through UL, or Underwriters Laboratory. Fire alarms are also under product standard specifications. Rated wall assemblies is another example in the fire protection industry, or personal protective equipment when you're working in a construction job site, construction materials. Those are all applicable product standards that we're going to look at today. There are a variety of organizations that are involved in product standard development. They can include anything from factory mutual or FM approvals and FM Global. They do things such as water flow detectors through FM 1043. They'll go through the different test process and testing process and certification process for water flow detection devices. Another example is the ASTM E84 product standard, which has to do with the test method for surface burning characteristics of building materials. So it's taking a look at those materials that are installed in your buildings up against wall surfaces. ASME, or the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, is another organization, and they get involved in things like pipe flanges and flange fittings through ASME B16.5. NFPA is another organization that gets involved in different test standards. For instance, the standard methods for fire tests of door assemblies through NFPA 252. UL, or Underwriters Laboratory, is another organization, and we're going to discuss more about their process today as an example. Helps with the development of the standard for smoke detector systems, or UL 268. All of these organizations are independent organizations that go through and develop product standards to ensure that those products, when tested and certified, are considered safe for the end user. Product standards are also incorporated into a variety of other standards and codes. The importance is that product standards are then put into design or installation standards. For instance, NFPA 13 may reference a variety of product standards like the sprinkler standard to ensure that when those sprinkler systems then become designed and installed, they are specified appropriately, and we know that those sprinklers, that when they are installed, as long as they have those independent product standard marks on them, such as UL or FM in particular to sprinklers, you know that they have been tested and independently certified by that third party in order to ensure that the product will work when it is installed. It ensures the quality and the functionality of each of these products. So that way, again, when the consumer or end user takes on that product, we know that that product will be appropriate and safe for the public. As I discussed earlier, they are referenced in a variety of codes and design standards. In previous modules, we talked about different building codes, such as ICC, and ICC is a prime example that adopts different product standards throughout their codes. Additionally, there are a variety of design standards. I just gave you an example of where in the sprinkler design standard, NFPA 13, you may find references to UL or FM having the certified mark on that product, so that way you know that it's safe for use. You will also find that information by the product manufacturers on their product specification sheets, showing that their product has already been through that standards process. You can see here an example of how it may be incorporated. This comes from an NFPA standard where you can see, for instance, NFPA 10 for portable fire extinguishers. It talks about that the portable fire extinguishers need to be listed and labeled in accordance with the product standard that it was tested to. And you can also see that there's a variety, depending upon the extinguisher type, of all the different product specifications that it will need to meet. For instance, carbon dioxide types, there's a variety of standards. You could either meet ANSI or UL 154 for standard for carbon dioxide fire extinguisher. Dry chemical types also look at a different product standard, ANSI or UL 299. And so it's important that when you're reviewing products to be installed into a facility or to be utilized for a fire protection or life safety device or appliance, that we would make sure that those products have been tested to the appropriate standard specification that we're looking at.
So now we're going to talk about how UL and other, we'll focus on UL, but it's a similar process to how other product standards are developed. So the standard development process through UL is a collaborative process. Again, like you've seen if you've watched the other modules, public access is important, needing to have comments from public, from industry. But as we'll talk about, it's actually very different than the other standards because UL, the standards are typically always open. We don't have quite the same set regimented process that we do on some of the other type standards like NFPA and ICC standards that every few years come up. These are very much industry driven. And so with that, everyone can always go online, review what's there, submit proposals to either modify existing ones or propose new ones. And then the standards technical committees will meet. Many times these are virtual meetings where teleconference, phone call in, although it could also be a face-to-face meeting to talk about the new proposal, the new change that's being recommended. So as far as the development process goes, UL will get a call for creating a new standard or has an existing one that needs to be updated. They'll put out a call for people to serve on the standards technical panels. Like with the other ANSI accredited standards, they represent a wide range of individuals, of companies, of organizations, and again, no one industry can dominate. So with the safety standards per ANSI, it's designed to be where no more than 1/3 can be from any one segment of the industry. The reason for that is we want to make sure that we do not have individuals or one realm trying to force their way through the entire process. And so UL does a very good job at making sure that their panels are balanced across different interest groups. If someone leaves, someone else has to join in from an underrepresented interest group if others are at their maximum to make sure that they still have that balance. In that meeting, we'll talk about the proposal for revising and creating those standards. Now, a lot of times with the initial draft of a standard, how it ends up working is you're going to have industry come forward with the proposal, and then UL start to develop it and bring in the industry professionals to get a standard that's going to meet the needs of industry. And even when UL has ones that they're not necessarily seeking ANSI approval on, they still follow the same basic process. So to initiate a new standard, anyone can bring forward a request. An individual, an organization, especially these come about when there's a new product that's been developed or the need for a product to get standardized. So UL is not sitting back to thinking, gee, let's come up with a new standard to write about something. What should we do it on? They wait for industry to come to them or individuals to come to them and say, you know what, we have this product. this is a great product. We really need to get it to be listed to make sure that this can serve the need it's intended to serve. A lot of times the requirements in the test standard are also driven by what does that design standard say that the product has to do, and then UL will base their test on making sure that the products can actually perform what's being expected of them by that design standard. So when design standards make changes in their requirements, that then gets passed back to UL of, you know what, products now have to do this, we need this to be in the standard, and UL will at that point start to develop a standard that meets those needs that industry is saying, because a design standard is driven by industry. See the module on design standards for more details on that, but it's driven by industry, all facets of it. And so when industry comes forward saying, we need products to do this, UL will say, okay, we'll come up with this test standard for that, and then start testing the different devices to make sure that they meet what's required in that standard. So the submittal has to include, what's the issue? Is it a new product you're trying to come out with? Is there an existing one that, yes, now it has to also do these things, or it no longer has to do these things? Why is it that you need a new standard? UL then gets that and starts to review it. So they have to know why it is you want a standard, not just say, yeah, I thought a new standard would be a cool idea. Let me write one. Well, why? Doesn't necessarily need pages upon pages upon pages upon pages of documentation, but a statement of, here's why this is important, here's why we need this. What's the matter? And then why do we need to address it? Sort of addressed that already. Description of what needs to be addressed. So yes, it has to be changed. How does it have to change? What needs to be done there in order to make sure that it meets the needs that industry has? And they also want some clarification that, this is something new and unique. There's not another standard already out there, be it by UL or some other organization. As we talked about, one thing with the ANSI process is trying to get harmonization between standards to make sure that there's not multiple different organizations each coming out with their own standard to cover the exact same thing. Because if you have multiple organizations doing their own standard, different jurisdictions adopt different ones, and then you try to cross over components, it doesn't work well. Because, different threads, for example. And so because of that, want to, as whenever possible, not duplicate things. So if you want to come up with a new standard, you have to let UL know that, to the best of your knowledge, no one else is already doing this, or if someone else is doing something related to it, explaining how what you need is different from what that standard already does. So as far as how proposal works, those UL standards, you can go online now, look at any UL standard, and if you see something there that needs to be changed in the standard, it's open now. As I said before, unlike the NFPA or ICC standards that tend to be on cycles where it's every 3 years, for example, and if you don't get it in right at the start of that cycle, it's too late. Generally speaking, the UL standards are always open, and because they're always open, you can make a change recommendation, and it'll sit there for a while. Now, after some period of time has elapsed, UL will periodically have the technical committees, technical panels, review the standard to make sure that everything is still applicable. You cannot have a standard that was adopted 50 years ago and no one's ever looked at it since then. But it is open for review at all times, and technical panel can go back and review it at any point they so like. There are times where UL can set up revision cycles if there's one that they know needs significant work, or especially when a new one's being developed. Then they'll put in a cycle where, okay, we're first going to get this, especially on the new ones, as I said, get the proposal in, review it, get the technical panel together, have them put out a first draft. But before that then becomes, accept the basic and start being tested to it, gets put out for public review, then they get it back, committee can make further revisions, and if there's one that has to be updated, they can set it on a revision panel. It's also possible for them to do emergency revisions if something is found to be catastrophically wrong from the beginning. So next we're going to go through the different stages, and we're going to start with the proposal stage. as I said, that proposal comes in, so there's a preliminary review. The reason for the preliminary review is to make sure that, yes, this is something that industry actually wants. Because if UL gets a comment from one person saying, you know what, I want a new standard on product X, and they send it out to industry, and they get back from industry of, no one's doing this, this isn't anything that's needed, it's not actually going to work as they want it to, don't bother doing this type of approach. If industry doesn't want it, they're not going to spend their resources to develop something that industry doesn't want. It's very much that industry-driven process. They're also going to, at that point, especially when some new products are coming out, a lot of times they'll have competing proposals, and they'll review it to just, okay, are we already working on something just like this? Or is there one already sort of similar to this that's been proposed in the works? And if so, we'll just combine these two together. Then it gets sent out to ballot, where it's going to be public review, sent out of that draft standard, goes out to the public, and the public then has the opportunity to weigh in if there's something they don't like in that, they can weigh in and say, yes, make these changes or not, which then gets sent back to the committee. The committee will ballot it at that point. Now, UL could still at that point say, you know what, we need a task group to further develop this proposal, and therefore not going to move forward. Or it then gets sent to the technical panel to meet and review what's there. So as comments come in, they're given consideration. UL will give a written response to every comment. No matter what the comment is, they're going to respond to it to say, yes, this is good, bad, whatever. So they can either accept in whole. So you know what, this is a perfect suggestion. We wish we would have thought of it ourselves. Let's write it in as is. The agree with the general principle, accepting with modification. Agree with the general principle, but we're going to make these few small changes here to make sure that, yes, we can actually meet the needs of industry, because especially if the panel of I like it in general, but the small change, or they can reject it. A rejection comes with a technical explanation, but at this time, either this standard is not viewed as being necessary, or this provision is not being viewed as necessary, and explaining why, or just acknowledging the yes, received your comment. A lot of times the acknowledgement ones are given, especially if they get a comment back that's an editorial type comment of someone of, yeah, I think this is a good idea. They'll give an acknowledgement of that, just saying that, yes, we've received your comment. So that way the person knows that they're not being ignored and that, their thoughts were considered. And they can also answer a question, in that if a person gives a question in instead of giving a proposed change, they ask a question for clarification, or ask, why is this done this way, or anything along those lines. UL can then just answer the question on that. Again, they're getting their concern met, even though it may not be directly as a change in the standard. So, what did we cover in this module? We went over what are product standards. These are the standards that are used to specify how the individual products are going to work. They're tied into the design, installation, maintenance standards, and that those standards are going to specify these products, and so the requirements for them do match up with the requirements in those design standards, for example. Where the product standards used, pretty much everything in the fire protection industry will be a listed component. Anything that's critical to safety, we want it to be listed. We want to have confidence that it will work as intended when it's intended to, and that's what the product standard gives us, is that reassurance that, yes, a product that meets this standard will work in those design applications. Who develops the product standards? Well, these are developed by standard development organizations like UL, FM, and NFPA, and others. And they're developed by technical panels that discuss the technical merit, subject matter experts who can weigh in and determine, yes, this is what's needed for this product to be successful. And how are they developed? Well, it's a process similar but different to what we see with other standards development organizations, but the hallmarks of the ANSI process are there. It's open to the public, Public can give comments and reviews. I said before, the main difference between these and a lot of the others standards that we see is that they're not on set revision cycles all the time. They're always open, always able to adapt to the changing needs of industry, of individuals, to put in that comment to get the standard changed and updated as needed. So with that, thank you.